All right, so graph one, the 2 mm graph sheet. Now this says a typical graph sheet contains a grid of vertical and horizontal line of varying thicknesses. So there are usually 3 types of grid lines, sometimes only 2. The thickest grid lines are usually 2 centimeters apart, and the grid line of medium thickness are in the middle between the thickest grid lines. The distance between the thickest and the grid line of medium thickness is 1 centimeter. So we can probably have this discussion again when we actually look at one of the actual graph sheets. Now, the minor grid lines, in this case, the minor grid lines are in blue, are at 2 mm intervals. So the distance here is 1 centimeter. The distance here is 1 centimeter. And this is the distance between a major grid line and a grid line of medium thickness. Or on some graph sheets, the medium thickness and the thickest grid lines, they are the same. And so the distance here, this is 1 centimeter. All right, now the minor grid lines, which are the blue ones, they are 2 millimeter intervals apart. So this is 2 millimeters. And that is why the graph sheet that we use is called the 2 millimeter graph sheet, because the distance between the smallest interval is 2 millimeter. All right, so everybody should know that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeter, and that on your graph sheet, every centimeter is divided into 5 equal parts. So if you divide 1 centimeter, which is 10 millimeters, if you divide that by 5, you're going to end up with 10 divided by 5 is 2 millimeter. So the distance between the blue lines, the smallest interval on your graph sheet is 2 millimeters. So recapping, your major grid lines are at 1 centimeter intervals. For most graph sheets, it's like that. Not for all, but for most. The major grid lines are at 1 centimeter interval. Every centimeter on your graph sheet is divided into 5 equal parts. If you divide 1 centimeter, which is 10 millimeter, into 5 equal parts, you're going to get 2 millimeter. So therefore, the distance, the smallest interval on your graph is 2 millimeter. Hence, the reason the graph sheet is called the 2 millimeter graph sheet. Now, one of the first and most important thing you have to learn when you're dealing with graphs is the issue of the graph scale. Or you've got to learn about graph scales. Now, graph scale tells us how to number or label the axes. It informs us of the number of units represented by a stated distance on the graph sheet. So your graph scale is going to tell you, for example, how much 1 centimeter on your graph sheets, what 1 centimeter on your graph sheet represents. So the graph sheet tells you how much unit is being represented by a certain distance on your graph sheet. All right, here are some examples of graph scales. The first one is 1 centimeter to represent 1 unit. Now, 1 centimeter to represent 1 unit on the x-axis means on the x-axis, every centimeter on the x-axis, the number increases by 1. So recapping a little, guys, these are my major grid lines. And my major grid lines, they are 1 centimeter intervals. So this is one, my major grid line. And here is another one. These are my major grid lines, and my major grid lines are at 1 centimeter interval. Now, the scale on the x-axis here, so the x-axis is labeled, and the scale on the x-axis is 1 centimeter to 1 unit. It means every centimeter on my graph sheet, the number increases by 1. Now, those red lines, those are my major grid lines, and they are 1 centimeter intervals. And the scale is 1 centimeter to 1 unit. It means that every centimeter, the number increases by 1. Now, one of the things, once you have your graph scale and your scales have been labeled, it is important that you know your minor divisions. All right. So, for example, let me just move this line a little. This is where it should be. All right. So these are 1 centimeter intervals. All right. Now, every centimeter on your graph sheet is divided into 5 equal parts. So the scale is 1 centimeter to 1 unit. So this 1 centimeter here is representing 1 unit. Now, the question is, what does the little division, how much is each of the little division representing? That is the important thing. Now, to find that out, here's what we're going to do. We want to know how much these minor divisions represent. To find out, here's what we're going to do. Remember, 1 centimeter here, 1 centimeter. 1 centimeter is representing 1 unit. All right, before that, 1 centimeter, which is 10 millimeter, is representing 1 unit. All right, and we'll get that information from the scale. Now, remember, every centimeter is divided into 5 equal parts. So if I divide, let us say this by 5 and this by 5, I'm going to get one of the small divisions, which is the smallest interval, which is 2 millimeters, is representing 1 divided by 5, which is 0.2 units. So what this is saying is that if here is 1, this would be, here would be 1.2. This would be 1.4. This would be 1.6. This would be 1.8 and then 2. Then you're going to have 2.2, 2.4, 2.6, 2.8, and then 3. In other words, if the scale on the x-axis is 2 centimeters to 1 unit, every single small division is going to be representing 0.2 of a unit. Or every 2 millimeter interval, which is the smallest interval on your graph sheet, would be representing 0.2 of a unit. And this is very important. It's very, very important that you understand your graph scale and how to identify what the smallest division, how many units the smallest division in your graph sheet is representing. Here's another scale. Now, this scale says 2 centimeters to represent 10 units on the 2 centimeters to represent 10 units on the x-axis. So we can see it. These are my major grid lines, and they are 1 centimeter intervals. Here they are. They're at 1 centimeter intervals. My major grid lines, and they're at 1 centimeter interval. The scale is 2 centimeters to represent 10 units. And what that simply means is that every 2 centimeters on your graph sheet, the number goes up by 10. So once 0, 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, 10. 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, 20. The scale is 2 centimeters to 10 units. Now remember, every centimeter on your graph sheet is divided into 5 equal parts. So 2 centimeters, which is representing 10 units, which is 10 small divisions, is representing 10 units. Guys, remember, every centimeter on your graph sheet is divided into 5 equal parts. So 2 centimeters will be divided into 10 equal parts. If I divide both sides over here by 10, I'm going to get one of my small divisions. And one of the small divisions, that is the 2 millimeter distance, on the graph sheet would be representing 1 unit. What that means is that we have what? 0. Each of the small divisions is representing 1 unit. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then 20. So what I want for you to pick up here is that notice that if the scale changes, the value of each of the small division, or what each of the small division represent, also changes. Let's have a look at another scale. Now, this scale says 2 centimeters to represent 2 centimeters to represent 5 units on the x-axis. All right, 2 centimeters to represent 5 units on the x-axis. All right, so in this instance, the scale is 2 centimeters, 2 centimeters, which is actually 10 of the smaller divisions, or the smallest divisions on your graph sheet. And the smallest division on your graph sheet is at 2 millimeter intervals. 2 centimeters is representing 5 units. And what we want, the 2 centimeters, which is 10 of these smallest division, is representing 5 units. So I'm going to divide both sides by 10 to determine the value of one of the small divisions. Therefore, one of these smallest division, which is the 2 millimeter interval, is representing 5 divided by 10, which is 0.5 units. What that mean? It means that if this is 0, this is 0.5, then 1. 1.5, 2. 2.5, 3. 3.5, 4. 4.5, 5. Each of these the smallest divisions is in this instance is representing 0.5 of a unit. Let's have a look at another scale. All right, this scale says 1 centimeter to 5 units on the y-axis. 1 centimeter to 5 units on the y-axis. All right, so at D, the scale is 1 centimeter to represent 5 units on the y-axis. All right, so 1 centimeter, which is representing 5 of the small divisions, because everybody remember, every centimeter in your graph sheet is divided into 5 equal parts. Every centimeter on your graph sheet is divided into 5 equal parts. So 1 centimeter, which is 5 small divisions, is representing 5 units. If I divide both sides by 5, I'm going to get that one of these smallest divisions, which is 2 millimeters, is representing 5 divided by 5, 1 unit. So what that means is that we are at what? Let us say 0, then what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each of the small divisions is representing 1 unit. All right, and it's very, very important, especially for things like reading coordinates, that you be able to do this and do it very quickly. Whether you have to work it out or you can just simply look at it and tell, which you should be able to do. All right, let's see if there are any others. All right, no, there isn't. All right,